Welcome back to Laurence McKenna on LFC channel. It is well worth noting how many good things we can talk about after almost every game with Liverpool this season. But I want to start on like a broad point with the overall team, and something I've noticed a lot this season for the whole side is the pacing of the game and the control of the pace and the self-control, which is different to controlling the opposition, and therefore how Liverpool win the game. And I mean it in this sense, right? In previous seasons, when Liverpool were playing a team like Bournemouth or other bogey sides or other sides who possibly had a chance but were meant to be sides that Liverpool would beat, Liverpool panicked very early on. There'll be a nervousness about a lot of the game. Even in some of the seasons where we controlled things, there was still this idea that, are we far enough ahead of these guys? Are we giving them too many chances? Liverpool are a total 90 team now. And what I mean by that is they play the full 90 minutes and know that even if you do something in this early part, the end part is there. They know that if there is a goal scored against them early on, there are still goals to get later in the game. They also know that if they score goals early on, there are goals that the opposition can get later in the game. And of course, there have been a couple of times this season where they've played teams punch for punch, which is the other point that I kind of want to go with, and they've not controlled it in the right way. They played Fulham in that way and almost didn't get away with it. They've played a couple of sides this year where it's sort of like almost United-esque, where it's like, hey, we need to control it in such a way that Liverpool still know they're going to score, still get good enough chances, but don't allow the opposition into the game or to control in the way they want to. Now, that might sound like a very broad catch-all term to a lot of Liverpool fans, but let me explain why I think it's so important. First of all, it's not necessarily a tactic that Jurgen Klopp is employing, though the tactic bolsters the mentality with Jurgen Klopp, right? A few seasons ago when he first came in at Liverpool, the tactic was gegenpressing. The tactic was intensity. The tactic was get the ball back and get it to that front three or get it to a combination to then get to the goal almost as quick as possible. You can almost time it how quickly Liverpool were trying to get to the opposition goal, right? And that bolstered the confidence within the side because they knew they were playing towards their strengths. Come then, the era where Liverpool did win the league did look like, quad Liverpool, and it was about control. It was about bringing the ball under Liverpool's control and working the opposition as much as they could. Since then, the meta of football has since moved on again, and that's not to say that managers who try to control possession are no longer relevant, but it is to say that football is now, again, much more of a transitional game, much more of a 360 adaptable game that, probably will move away from that in the near future anyway. But right now is about having that adaptability. And Jurgen Klopp has done a very, very good job of forming this team into that. Every other YouTube channel right now will be talking about Darwin Núñez specifically, Jota specifically, picking out a couple of these guys. Remember just a couple of weeks ago when those same channels were saying things like, Jota's not good enough for a season like this. He's not a high enough performer for someone like Liverpool, because they didn't know the depth of Liverpool's squad. When they weren't talking about the injuries that Liverpool have right now, when they weren't talking about the other players who offer so much to this team because they don't know the Liverpool squad. When they were saying, I think Núñez is overrated, but now we're top of the league, they're saying things like, well, actually, I think he offers a certain element to this, or he offers this to the side. That was only coming from the people who understood the depth of Jurgen Klopp's squad and the depth of the use of that squad. And that is what Jurgen Klopp has done very well. He's galvanized a set of players around a new idea. He had depth before. We had Minamino, we had Shaqiri, we had Origi, we had plenty of players who were willing to come in and play vital roles in terms of winning Liverpool the game. But in the last season, we didn't have that. We didn't have a squad that was invested in the idea. And the idea is, if we play this way, then we will be a successful team. Not just good, successful as a team. And that's the difference here with this Liverpool team. They understand they're on something good. They understand that there is a finite amount of time that they have to strike with this. And they understand that they're very honoured to be part of a Jurgen Klopp rebuild, which a lot of people thought was never going to happen. Now, with all of that, we then have to get into the granular details. Liverpool today started with Alisson in the back line, probably their favourite centre-back pairing of Konate and Van Dijk, alongside at left-back Joe Gomez, and on the other side, an academy player who hasn't played all that much for Liverpool, doesn't look like he's in the same shape as Trent Alexander-Arnold, and frankly, a lot of people would have said that is a weakness for Liverpool in previous seasons. Was it exploited? Not nearly enough by Bournemouth, a team who was the only team in the past 8 games, which means it's probably a form thing, who are ahead of Liverpool in terms of form. Now, with that, what that means is Bournemouth were attacking particularly well. They were controlling the opposition almost as well as Liverpool were. Sure, there were games where you look at it and you go, that looks more difficult than it is meant to be, Manchester United games like that, but Bournemouth were a good team, a team who should have given Liverpool a much harder game than they did. And Liverpool played them very well. They softened a lot of what Bournemouth's edges were, and they also made sure that they negated a lot of the threat that Bournemouth had. Why? Well, because Liverpool's personnel do that very well at the moment. That back three, which is Alisson, Van Dijk and Konate, with the two bombing on wingers, but also that like adaptable three either side, is very solid, or has been very solid much more recently. No matter who's playing at left back, in fact, I actually think I prefer Joe Gomez at left back over someone like Tsimikas right now. I love what he brings to the side. Pep Guardiola, thank you for that little idea. At the same time, Bournemouth are a good side, right? And I think that actually we shouldn't underestimate how well Bournemouth played today. In that first half, they were more than equal to that Liverpool team. Arguably, they created some of the better chances, and they've shut off people like Nunez and Jota very, very well. That was probably because those guys needed a little bit of time to jab, 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 find where the gaps were in that back line of Bournemouth over the full 90, and work out the best way to beat them. There's something about those Klopp halftime team talks that I really want to know what it looks like. I really want to know what it is that he says. I really want to know how he's briefing his team, what it is that he's changing, the tweaks that he's making, who he's telling to continue in those roles, who he's telling to slightly move your position over here, who he's also saying, you know exactly what it is that you need to do in the second half, go out and do it. All of these things contribute to Liverpool winning the game. And in the second half when they went out there, it wasn't like a whole different side. It was the same side stepping out and stepping up. And this is the interesting factor, right? Bournemouth didn't even look like they put that many feet wrong. They didn't even look like they were all that bad. All of Liverpool's goals came from scenarios where you'd have gone, okay, maybe you should do something there. But Liverpool did exactly what they needed to do in exactly the moment. Were adaptable. They put Nunez forward sometimes, Jota sometimes playing a little bit further forward. Like, the adaptability of this side was what should be lauded, and the fact that they read the space exceptionally well, find that space, and then score from that space is incredible. And the fact, by the way, that it's a repeatable thing and that Liverpool can just keep finding men on the end of the ball, despite them being excellent finishes. Like, I felt that Jota's finished twice, both world-class finishes, Nunez's second finish, a world-class finish. Every goal was a kind of a typical Liverpool goal from this season. And Jurgen Klopp deserves credit for that, because last season they were struggling to put balls in the net. They were struggling to find a repeatable idea that would get Liverpool ahead of the opposition. I say all of that to then go on and say, we're still growing in certain aspects. And when I say we're still growing, that still means there are still some potential weaknesses within the team. McAllister's still playing the six, and at the start of the season, I think a lot of people thought, hey, it's going to take some time for him to grow into this position. We definitely said that on this channel. It's going to take some time for him to find his feet there, because he wants to be a little bit further forward than a Caicedo or whoever he was playing with at Brighton. And I still think there's an exploitable element to that midfield, right? Harvey Elliott is obviously a much more progressed midfielder. Curtis Jones kind of sits a little bit deeper in alongside McAllister, which definitely helps him a lot, always gives him an out ball, means that he can be a little bit more risky in some of those balls because there's always two people sitting a little bit deep. It's not a double pivot, but it definitely operates in some of the similar ways with the roles that those two exchange and kind of share between each other. That helps a lot. It then also helps that immediately behind that, they have two ball-playing centre-backs. So when we're on the ball, we're sucking the opposition out, we're creating space just behind their front three and possibly even into their midfield, and giving Liverpool the opportunity to break multiple lines, not just the first line, but the second line in itself. So we're going beyond their midfield and instantly onto their back line, putting someone like Darwin Nunez, Jota or Diaz into brilliant positions straight away. Now again, Diaz had another one of those games where a lot of people are going to get on his back and go, I don't think he's the best starting player, I don't think he's the best for this position. I actually think Liverpool spread the ball really well, and I get the frustration around Diaz. Sure, we'd love more goals and assist output from him, but I feel like he's a massive distraction. His gravity within the team, what he does, the dragging of players out of position, the difficulty and the awkwardness of the way that he plays the opposition, his low center of gravity, the way he goes past people, even though he's like 5'10", 5'11", something like that. All of these little factors build up throughout a game, and then suddenly when Liverpool are changing things, the opposition don't know where anyone is. They've no longer got an awareness of where Nunez is, or Jota, or Diaz, or if they brought on a Cody Gakpo because suddenly Gakpo is just sitting on one of the opposition players, making a cross run for Nunez to then just run out into space, which is just there for days. One thing I've got to include about Nunez, which is just an incredible stat, is there are very few players at this point in a Liverpool season that have registered 10 and 10. And there are loads of people getting on Darwin's back, there are loads of people trying to quantify what it is that he does, there are loads of people trying to say, hey, he should have this, should have this. A lot of people just criticize, but don't necessarily lay out what they expect from Darwin Nunez. He's 10 and 10 at this point in the season. Very few people have had that. Gerrard had it twice, Luis Suarez has had it. I can't remember who the other player was, but that is some esteemed company to be in. This is a guy who's a facilitator as well as a goal scorer, someone who is just a nightmare for the opposition to try to manage and put a bushel on, right? He's someone who is much more adaptable than people are giving him credit for, but he's also someone who's much smarter than people are giving him credit for. And I think at the moment, because he's slightly unknowable, he's getting all these really quite just brainless comparisons, and people are just sticking the boot in for no reason. Darwin Núñez is a perfect Klopp player. And believe me, if you're not bought in already and you're a Liverpool fan, I feel like you're not watching the same team. I get it, like there's frustrating games where if we drop a point then it's like, oh, well, he should be an out-and-out goal scorer. What if he's not in the team for that? He scored 2 great goals today, and guess what? Like, we have other players in the team who are capable of that. You got to share these things around. And some of that, when he doesn't score, has to go on to a Klopp or whoever's alongside him. He facilitates for other people, and we saw that today. I feel like he's making a lot of space, and it makes a massive difference for Liverpool. So there's all these different combinations that suddenly Liverpool are finding. Almost again, like if you look at the NFL or you look at a play-based game, which Liverpool and football has been play-based at times in previous years, it's almost a bit Mane, Salah, Firmino-esque, where in previous seasons you'd have gone, Mane gets the ball, this player runs here, and Mane knows exactly where to go. Last season, that wasn't so much there. There wasn't the synergy, there wasn't the movement, there wasn't the understanding between the players, possibly because Liverpool was struggling for personnel to be able to play those kind of things in the midfield, but they're also just struggling for confidence and moving on from that previous era of football. They still wanted to be that dominant side that had that, like, hey, we are here to impress ourselves, but they didn't still have the know-how or the ability to do that, right? More the ability than the know-how. What they've now done is transitioned on from that. They don't have Trent in this side, vice-captain of the team. They don't have Endo. They don't have Thiago. They don't have Bajcetic. They don't have Salah. There are numerous players who are out right now or not available for Liverpool that would be perceived starters for this side. So let's give this side some credit the way that they're playing right now. They've hungry people coming off the bench. And if you look at the next few weeks, boy, are they going to need that. Because when I'm looking at these fixtures for Liverpool, Fulham, second leg of the EFL Cup, expect a ravenous Craven Cottage for that. That is a massive upset if Fulham can pull that off. Followed by the FA Cup 4 days later, followed by 3 days after that a Chelsea game at Anfield, sure, but still it was a 1-1 start of the season. What can Liverpool do against Chelsea now? How can we see the progress? I feel like that's a great yardstick for Liverpool. Followed by, again, away to Arsenal. I went to that first Arsenal away game in the FA Cup. Arsenal are not going to let that happen again. Burnley, difficult game. Brentford, difficult game. Luton, difficult game. Forest, difficult game. All the way up to Man City. If Liverpool not still top of the league, then you'd probably be disappointed with that run of games. You actually think that Liverpool should have gotten a maximum amount of points out of those games. But there will be games where the opposition work out what Liverpool are doing. They shut down a Núñez. They frustrate whoever. Is Mo Salah going to come back in time with his injury? Is Endo going to be back in time to come in from McAllister? Are we going to be able to rotate people in that midfield? Is Bajcetic going to come back? Is Thiago even going to step back into this team, or is he going to be on his way out in January? All these kind of big questions. Are we going to have any injuries in the back line? If we do, is Joe Gomez good enough centre-back cover? If Tsimikas is still out, or Robbo is still out, Robbo surely has got to return sometime soon. And again, I haven't spoken about it. Alisson, in pretty much at any team right now, will be an amazing goalkeeper, but in this Liverpool side, his aura, his ability, just his presence changes the way that opposition shoot. They panic, he's shutting down space, he's closing down angles. It's incredible what he's doing. We don't have that same play when it's Kevin Kelleher back there. So what are we going to do in the EFL Cup? Probably play Alisson. What are we going to do in the FA Cup? We'll probably find out, but it'll be interesting to see how we rotate our goalkeeper position. There's a lot of squad management to go on. There's still so long to go in this season, but I'd much rather have points in the bag than games still to play. Liverpool are 1 game ahead, and I will just make sure of this before I get into this standings. 1 game ahead of City, level on games with Arsenal, level on games with Villa. They've got a 5-point gap to everyone else in the league right now. And Man City are coming back into it now. So I'll be interested to see what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. I'll do a much more in-depth breakdown in the coming days of where we were. Preview, obviously, of the Fulham game. And if you haven't already joined the Discord, we're doing like a little kind of watch-along get-together thing, so you're more than welcome in there. If you want to contribute through the Patreon, I'd be very, very grateful to it. It would help me a lot to obviously become a more independent creator, and obviously people supporting and helping in this capacity is amazing. Really appreciate you. I'd love to chat to the community more. We had a great chat today while the game was on as well. And it's good vibes over there. So head over to the Discord, head over to the Patreon. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in a little while. Much love. Bye.